Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
House Democrats eyeing the next step in their impeachment inquiry as we await the release of 2 reports into alleged FBI abuse and bias in the 2016 Russia investigation. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, who sits on the Senate Judiciary Committee and will be a juror should impeachment head to the Senate, joins us to discuss all these developments. Senator, good to have you with us tonight.
Good to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, so we're starting to hear a little bit more about the Horowitz report and what it may or may not say. This in from the Washington Post saying, running the FBI's Russia probe, but documents errors, saying that there will be some findings. There were trouble, but not bias. It says the report generally rebuts accusations of a political conspiracy among senior law enforcement officials against the Trump campaign to favor Democrat Hillary Clinton, while also knocking the Bureau for procedural shortcomings in the FBI, the officials said. This is what Rush Limbaugh has to say as we wait for the report.
I'm not all in on Horowitz. Horowitz is from the same group of people that have been testifying all week and last.
So do you think that the people who are actually hoping that this will exonerate the president or will in some way show that there was at the highest levels of the FBI real trouble and real bias are going to be disappointed by this report?
Shannon, what I think we're going to find out from the Horowitz report is who all at the FBI was involved and how much spying they used the Obama administration for spying on the Trump campaign. And we know that this took place. So they've had 100 witnesses. Those witnesses have reviewed their statements. We will be able to look at that in total on December 9th. We will have a hearing on it on December 11th. And I think it's going to answer some questions. We do know there is one FBI lawyer who is said to have changed a reporting process dealing with the FISA warrant against Carter Page and wanting to find out if they are still there, what has happened to them, if they are dismissed, if there's reprimands, if there are criminal charges. And there will be some good information to take action on in that Horowitz report.
Bradley Moss, who is an attorney we often have on the show as well, says this in a tweet. What on earth will DeGeneva, meaning Joe DeGeneva, one of the attorneys, and all the Trump cultists do if Horowitz report basically slaps the FBI on the wrist for some sloppiness? He says no complaints from me for doing so, but otherwise say they did everything in compliance with the law. So if that is what he ends up saying, Senator, will you accept this report as being factual and accurate?
We are going to accept the Horowitz report. We feel like that this is something that will give us insight. We're also looking forward to the Durham report. We know that there is going to be additional information that will come from that. Shannon, what we have to realize is that the American people voted for and elected Donald Trump in 2016. This is who they chose to be their president. He is a disruptor. He is there to drain the swamp. He is doing a very good job of that. And that has made a lot of people who are the elitist and the bureaucracy really nervous. And they don't like it because they have liked D.C. the way it was, where they could chum up. And whether it was Democrat or Republican, have this elitist group and this bureaucracy that kind of ran on its own, regardless of what the people had to say. And with Donald Trump coming in, much of that is coming to an end. We also know that people want to be able to trust the institutions, and they expect the FBI to be truthful, to be factual. They have been appalled at what we've learned from Lisa Page and from Strzok and from Comey and all the different actions that show what they tried to do was use the federal government to undermine a private citizen who was standing for election for the highest office in the land. And then he won. And then they went into overdrive.
Well, let me ask you to that point, because we've heard now 2 weeks of public testimony with respect to the impeachment hearings. Lt Col Vindman is one of the folks who testified, and a tweet you put out about him has gotten a lot of attention. You said vindictive Vindman is the whistleblower, and you put that in quotes. Handler, Jennifer Rubin, who is a conservative blogger and writer at the Washington Post, among other places, says, this is a disgrace, Senator. And you know, there were critiques that were much more colorful than that. So do you stand by the tweet?
I do stand by the tweet. Shannon, what we have is someone who defied his chain of command, and his direct supervisor said he had a problem with judgment. He had a problem with the chain of command. And he had a problem, Vindman had a problem with the president. The president wasn't taking his advice. He didn't like that. And he wanted the president to take his advice. And so what did he do? He defied that chain of command. He talked to somebody in the intel community. He then would not answer that question when he was asked if he had given this information to someone who was the whistleblower. And of course, this is something that should cause everybody concern. Look, you honor someone for their service to the country, and certainly we honor the service that he gave to the country. But Shannon, I got to tell you, when you are defying your chain of command, when your direct supervisor says you have a problem with judgment and a problem with defying that chain of command, and you are going after not just a colleague, you are going after the commander-in-chief, and it is over a policy disagreement. And then look at where we find ourselves here with this whistleblower report and with this impeachment. And this has gone on, and everybody has said there is nothing that rises to the level of impeachment or bribery or extortion. The American people are tired of this, and they want to get the facts. They want to get this over with. They want to hear the Horowitz report. They want the FBI to be trustworthy.
It is Wednesday, the 27th of November of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Oh, what a lovely dish on Thanksgiving Day Eve. Well, Trump had a rally last night, and he was quite profane, as he is wont to do in, well, I think every single one. But the profanity was really flying. Yeah, barnyard profanity, and he accused the Democrats of being maniacs. While he was up there spitting and slobbering and, I don't know, drooling. We are, of course, the maniacs because they project with everything they do. He accused the media and the Democrats of falsely reporting that he had a major heart attack when he was mysteriously and quickly transported to Walter Reed, which that never happened, meaning that Democrats and the media did not report that he had a major heart attack, which means he had a major heart attack. Jeez. Well, I gotta hand it to you. The drugs they give him got him back up on his feet pretty good, where he can go out in front of a crowd and lie like the good old Trump that we know. You would think that without getting enough blood to the brain that he might resort to the truth. Well, those drugs opened up the capillaries and he's able to get back to his old self. At least we know he's healthy. In the future, when someone isn't really quite healthy and they're about ready to tip over because of all the bad stuff that's been going on in their bodies and their minds, we'll call that healthy as Trump. Okay, well, enough of that, because there's a lot more going on. I mean, gosh, had a turkey pardoned. I thought that maybe Gallagher might have stabbed it in the neck so he could have a picture taken of the turkey's corpse, with him in it. That's the kind of people we got, which reminds me, a war criminal like Gallagher is feted, but a war hero like Tillman was fragged. I don't put a lot of faith in certain aspects of our military. It is heartening to hear, though, that Gallagher's teammates messed up the sights on a sniper rifle because, he was killing civilians because it was so fun. And Trump wants to take this guy and some other of these war criminals around with him on his campaign stops. The silence that you are experiencing right now is that maybe I'm dumbfounded. No, I am actually trying to suppress the vast amounts of anger that is percolating up right now, just considering the fact that anybody would think that it was a good thing to take these murderous psychopaths around and hold them up as the paragon of American virtue. Square-jawed Americans willing to kill anybody, even little girls, in their flower print dress. Shoot him in the stomach. I think he tried to hit her in the head, but the sights had been messed up, and he got to the stomach. Still killed her. Teammates probably had to adjust the scope a little bit more, so he'd totally miss. Yeah, stabbed a teenager in the neck and watched him die. And then threatened to kill his fellow SEALs if they told on him. Tillman got fragged because he knew what the hell was going on, and there was more of the Gallaghers then than there are now, apparently, and thank God. I know. It could have just been an accident about Tillman's demise. But I've never bought that. He stood out. And they hated him. The college boy pro football player. There's a lot of people that don't like that in the military because it reflects badly on their character. They don't want to be compared to that. A true Renaissance man? Yeah, trust me. I know a little bit about what it means and what it takes to be put on the outside just because you have a heart. There's no room for heart in the military, and Pat Tillman found out about that damn quick. It wasn't about patriotism and upholding democracy. It was FUBAR. And a war perpetrated just for political gain. And men died, and Pat Tillman was fragged because, he knew a little bit too much. And you can't let that get out. Those who are the free thinkers, you gotta watch your back. You really do. So Trump's going to fet these war criminals, psychopaths, because, birds of a feather. Okay, and the Russian agitprop continues. I am actually astounded at the level of gaslighting that will occur just on somewhat of a personal level here in Southern Oregon on these Facebook community pages that I deride constantly here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy because they are open for much derision. Absolute denial, that we and all the news, all the media, the corporate media, it's all one big conspiracy. We are part of the deep state and we've been brainwashed. It's Russia, Russia, Russia. Sort of like a Glenn Greenwald, except a bunch of them with, I will admit, not as much education as Glenn Greenwald. Admittedly. But this same gaslighting, the same denial, the same ageist okay boomer bullshit. You know what cracks me up is that whole okay boomer meme came because a young woman was calling out an older guy whose denial of climate change and the real world was so pronounced. She said, okay, boomer. And now it's been appropriated by the right wing, the young Trumpenjungen. I guess that's almost like a redundancy. We'll call him Trumpenjungen, so we don't have to do the Jungen and young in the same sentence. Regardless, these young brown shirts, when I say young, they're in their mid-30s too, many of them, that think they know everything and could put down the old guy just because he's old. Which is funny because, I don't know, I don't really feel... Yeah, I do. I feel old. My body hurts. All those football injuries and other sports injuries and injuries of just working in the trades and all of that. Yeah, I feel old that way. But in terms of... Well, I don't want to get into this comparison thinking. I think that they have old ways of thinking. They haven't taken the time to develop their critical thinking skills, but they're quick to project their own limitations on everybody else and pass it off that we are brainwashed. Which, because of that statement, makes it very difficult then to turn around and say, no, you're the one brainwashed, when they are the ones brainwashed because they have been probably since they were born. Liberal as an invective, they were born into that. So, I don't know. Is that brainwashing? I don't know. Kind of. But, 20, 30 years of that, and pretty soon it doesn't matter if you're a hippie pot grower. Liberals are the scum, and we might as well be Nazi pot growers. At least that's how it is here in Southern Oregon. My God. So, an absolute denial of the facts. I mean, public records are public records, correct? When someone gets indicted and someone gets charged and and someone gets tried and someone gets convicted and someone gets hauled off to jail, there is a record of that. But that means nothing. Facts mean nothing. So they're intractable. And they want to put out the Russian agitprop, but we have to call it what it is. And I don't care if they come down on me and, you're like old, you're senile. Yeah, every ageist trope this ageist bigotry, and I'm not upset. Yeah, I guess I am upset because now that I am getting old, I knew this was going to happen. That's why I never embarked upon ageism when I was younger. I didn't go into this thing about I can't trust anybody over 30. I came from a culture where the extended family and the elders were considered wise, and you should respect them just by the fact they lived long enough to become wise. And I was raised that the move away from that attitude was because of a depersonalized urban environment where people could live next door to each other in suburban America and never say hi. Then I found out, actually in urban environments, they take care of old people quite well. Though I will admit that there was a time when I couldn't scramble to get to the bus in time. I mean, I'd be waiting in line, and I'd try to get to the door, and the bus would drive off because I wasn't quite quick enough. I couldn't hop, skip, and jump. Once I couldn't hop, skip, and jump, that's when I realized I'm getting old. I can't get to the bus. Now I got to wait for another 20 minutes to 40 minutes for another bus to come by. But at least there were buses. And at least there was an infrastructure that took care of old people, because out here in rural America, or semi-rural America, you're pretty much on your own. So this ageist bigotry is quite, I wouldn't call it disarming, but it is certainly stupid, and it is certainly still bigotry. And each one of these young people are going to be attending to senility at some point in their lives. It's not a joke. It's not fun watching a family member or a friend decay in front of your eyes. That's not funny. But with the Trump bros, it's not meant to be funny. It's meant to be hurtful. Because cruelty is the point. So what do we have here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy on the eve of Thanksgiving? Well, we are not. This is another thing. Trump's rally said that liberals want to change the name of Thanksgiving. There's a war on Thanksgiving. I don't know. Maybe he's talking about indigenous people calling it a day of mourning, which is fine, because in mourning there is also a giving of thanks. And that's what this is. Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving defines exactly what it is. We're giving thanks to each other. And to the Trump cult, that is a weakness. Now, isn't it? Well, compromised Senator Marsha Blackburn doubled down on her Russian agitprop smear of Lt Col Vindman. And they'll just triple down now. It's going to get worse. They are all complicit, and what are we going to do about it? We can't have a purge. It just wouldn't look right, but we got to do something. On the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Ohio State GOP lawmakers introduced a bill that would impose the death penalty on women looking to seeking an abortion. Not looking for an abortion, but they're seeking an abortion. Just seeking one, you can be put in jail and probably killed if they get their way. A New York lawsuit accused the Trump administration of starving the US Census Bureau of funding needed to avert an undercount of racial and ethnic minorities in the 2020 census. Well, that's been a long-running story, but now we have a lawsuit that will codify it and open it up to discovery. Yes, and Trump and his allies have been bullying intelligence experts who probe Russian election interference since the inauguration. They have a long history of it, as long as they've been part of this history. After the break, we then moved to the chef's table, where high-level Maltese officials resigned amidst a probe into the 2017 murder of journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia. And the anti-doping agency has called for a blanket ban of Russian athletes at the 2020 Tokyo Games over Russia fabricating evidence to try to discredit a whistleblower. Sounds familiar now, doesn't it? All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the rightish of the page, right there by the social media scroll, you will see our chat room link, and our chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, and we thank Kelly for doing so. And she does so much more. Thank you. And to the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and do please become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Your recurring contributions over these many 8 years and counting has allowed us to resist 24/7, 365, and we've been resisting by broadcasting all the news that's fit to read and be read, and even more. We try to have a diverse programming here, lots of science and lots of politics and things about literature. We even have a music show. So we have been able to do this because of your generosity. And I know the season is such that money is tight. But if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink, if you could send that amount of money to us once a month, I cannot even begin to tell you how helpful that is. Our bills are going up, and this is more than just a labor of love. It's our civic duty, and we appreciate you helping us fulfill our civic duty. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter and be right there, you can see it right there on the social media scroll by the chat room link. Go to @Netroots Radio. It is so simple. That's because Tom takes care of that, and we thank Tom for doing so and so much more. Thank you, Tom. I take care of @Justice Putnam, and you could follow me there because I then post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that linked up on social media for everybody's social media linkage pleasure. Follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. Okay. Other news coming through the transom. Once again, I have to remind folks that there's a point where I just got to put myself in a bubble because we curate a show. And as you can see, I really went off on my introductory rant. But apparently one of the main loan officers at Deutsche Bank has ended up dead. Apparently died last week, age 55. Now, of course, I put the trademark on conveniently died because there's too many conveniences that occur. Now, I'm not sure if this guy left a note, what was that other guy? I can't even remember his name all of a sudden. The guy who died and left a note said, "There's no foul play in my death, because I, know all the truth about Hillary's emails." Meaning that there wasn't any there. And so apparently that's Peter Smith. I knew I'd come up with that at some point. And he was looking for Hillary's emails, right? Because, hey. And after his death, his daughter said, this is kind of like what was going on. But he conveniently left a note saying, "There was no foul play in my death. Okay, I did it all myself." So I'm not sure about this fellow, what are the complete circumstances, but it sounds a little too convenient. Very convenient. And I just thought I'd bring that out because I think that these convenient fatalities are going to increase in number now. They will. All right, let's get on with this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. Will no one rid us of this chosen one? Yeah, chosen one. Well, Republicans in Ohio want those who obtain an abortion to go to prison or even be put to death. This is funny. Back during the Bush crime family days, the second Bush, that crime family days, those crime family days, I wrote a little short story about a dystopian universe where medical personnel were tasked with turning in their women patients who just asked about information about an abortion. And a woman who was pregnant who actually didn't ask for an abortion, but it was taken to be so. And she was charged, and these cases were fast-tracked in my story, so that within days they could be put on, the slab to be killed and televised. And so, of course, they're killing this woman and her unborn fetus. So the dystopian universe as such was that, well, in this case, the fetus doesn't really matter because we have a higher call. And that's to exact retribution on this woman who dared ask about what is an abortion. And so here we are now. Women who seek advice on reproductive health could be put to death if this bill goes through. Now, this is Ohio. So they're using this 723-page omnibus bill introduced by 19 Republicans creates 2 brand new felonies in the state: abortion murder and aggravated abortion murder. Hey, Roe v. Wade, we don't need your stinking Roe v. Wade. And there are no exceptions for rape and incest because, I mean, come on. God wanted dads to do this. Yeah, creepy. Let's see. But abortions would be allowed under very limited circumstances, only if a pregnant person is highly likely to die from fatal conditions unrelated to the pregnancy or mental health. In other words, if the pregnancy is going to cause the woman to die, she dies. But say she was like shot, and the only way to save her life then would be it'd be okay. Or she was in a car accident that wasn't her fault, because otherwise that could be considered aggravated abortion murder, according to this bill. And the death penalty is reserved for... Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped one small paragraph. Abortion murder is defined as purposely obtaining or performing an abortion. Under the proposed law, pregnant people who obtain abortions and doctors who perform them face 15 years to life in prison. The death penalty is reserved for aggravated abortion murder, which includes performing an abortion while committing or attempting to commit one or more additional felonies, such as kidnapping, arson, burglary, or an act of terrorism. You do know that protesting the Keystone Pipeline is considered an act of terrorism now. Don't be pregnant and do that. And the goal of this bill and others like it is to strip Ohioans of their reproductive freedoms. Kelly Copeland, executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio, told the Cincinnati Enquirer. Ohioans won't surrender their bodily autonomy to these extremists. Now, this Ohio bill follows a failed attempt in April by Texas legislators to make abortion punishable by death. And as far back as 2011, Republicans in Georgia also introduced legislation making abortion punishable by death. And in the Trump era, many Republican-led state legislators have introduced measures to restrict access to abortion. And one way to restrict access is the penalty of death. Jonathan Stempel of Reuters brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A new lawsuit in New York accuses the Trump administration of starving the US Census Bureau of funding that is needed to avert an undercount of racial and ethnic minorities in the 2020 census and deprive them of crucial federal funds and political representation. You know the whole concept of no taxation without representation? That applies to everybody, even if you're not a true citizen of the United States, because you pay taxes. Oh, well. The Brooklyn-based nonprofit Center for Popular Democracy Action and the city of Newburgh, New York, accuse the government of arbitrarily, capriciously, and irrationally slashing resources to count blacks, Hispanics, immigrants, the homeless, and other members of hard-to-count communities. They hope to set aside decisions to hire 1/3 as many enumerators who physically visit homes as in 2010, have census field offices, and reduce community outreach while ensuring that the government conduct the actual enumeration required by the U.S. Constitution. Well, we all know the Constitution is nothing but a goddamn piece of paper. It's actually a piece of parchment, but you know what I mean. And it really means nothing now. constitutional rule of law is some sort of partisan liberal dream. It doesn't exist. In fact, there are Trump Cult 45 type people now putting out the word that high crimes and misdemeanors does not exist in the Constitution, and that was just made up by we Democrats to make Trump look bad. And when you show them the Constitution that shows high crimes and misdemeanors there, they believe that you just added it. They always have an explanation, always. Well, the reason that they want to undercount is because we want to go back to the good old days where certain communities were considered maybe 3/5 human. Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is by Alex Henderson out of Alternet. When Fiona Hill, a former NSC senior director specializing in Russian and European affairs, testified before the House Intelligence Committee on November 21st, she stressed there was zero evidence to support the claim that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the United States 2016 presidential election. Nonetheless, the CrowdStrike conspiracy theory persists on the far right, and journalist Alex Finley, in a report for Just Security, discussed the extremes that Donald Trump's allies have been willing to go in the hope of discrediting intelligence on Russian election interference in 2016. I would suggest go look at that article in Just Security. I was going to report from it directly, but I needed a little bit more of a expository narrative here. The CrowdStrike conspiracy theory claims that in 2016, the cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike conspired with Democrats and the Ukrainian government to frame the Russian government for interfering in the presidential election. And this is the kind of things I have to put up with in these Facebook pages here in Southern Oregon, these community pages. They are just rife with this. Now, I don't think it's the whole of the community across this region, because there's many of us who are hunkered down, afraid to lift our heads up, because the ones with the loudest voices and the most conservative and the most extreme also have all the guns. Well, not all of them, because some of us, we're Oregonians, we have some guns, but we don't parade them around to tell everybody now we get to say what is polite conversation. And it always comes back to their fear that we're going to kill them, so they got to kill us. I swear to God, these people are so eliminationists, and they project their eliminationism on others. That is what is frightening. So back to this article here. According to the false claim that the Ukrainian government, not Putin, was the real villain in 2016, Finley notes, Trump never could have colluded with Russia because Russians never did anything wrong. And Finley notes that Attorney General William Barr has been investigating people in the U.S. intelligence community who have been part of the Russia investigation, and appointed federal prosecutor John Dunham to head that investigation. Finley explains, last month, media outlets reported that Barr's investigation had become a criminal one. Whether true or not, the claim, much like the public attacks from Trump, Republicans, and the conservative media ecosystem, seemed like a clear sign to civil servants, whether in the FBI, the CIA, or the NSA, to tread very carefully if they planned to take any actions that came anywhere near the Russia-Trump nexus again. Finley added, however, that Barr's investigation was not the first threatening message sent to the intelligence and law enforcement community about Russia. Trump and his allies have a long history of going after people who investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election. For example, Finley pointed out that former FBI Director James Comey and former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe were both fired. And Trump, Finley notes, has repeatedly attacked FBI investigators Peter Strzok and Lisa Page on Twitter and elsewhere with particularly prurient and unsettling comments, which is so rich coming from a freak like Trump. Prurient. My God. Finley observed one of Mike Pompeo's first actions when he became head of the CIA was to interrogate the analyst who had written the report concluding that Russia had interfered in the 2016 election and had aimed to help Trump win. More recently, Barr traveled to both the UK and Italy to meet with intel officials in those countries. While there, he asked those foreign governments about the actions of his compatriot American intelligence officers. He went to a foreign country, our allies, to dig up dirt on our intel community. Now, I got to tell you, no one else in the world, no other Western democracy or anything close to a democracy anywhere in the world believes this CrowdStrike conspiracy theory. The only ones who believe it are us. And who put it out? Vladimir Putin. What effect does this have on our national security? Finley asked. If our intelligence community becomes reticent to chase down counterintelligence leads because the president or his associates might be involved or have an interest in how they play out, how vulnerable does the country become? The good news is these civil servants seem like they will not be cowed. And that is why they are called the deep state, the administrative state, and they have to be dealt with. And I have to tell you, they, meaning the Trump bros and the Colt 45, have a lot of guns. And we got to do something about that. Now, I'm not trying to cause too much fear, but the facts are the facts. And thank God we have loyal, patriotic civil servants, because they may be the last bulwark in saving democracy itself. All right, we better get to our break. Oh my gosh, we better. And when we get back from that break, we're going to go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day the curtain first went up on the International Lady Garment Workers Union's pro-labor production on Broadway. The show was called Pins and Needles. The revue played on Broadway until 1940 and was revived in 1978. The ILGWU used the Princess Theater in New York City as a meeting hall. They decided to put on a show with union members as performers. Workers were only free to rehearse at night or on weekends. At first, performances were held only on Friday and Saturday nights. Pins and Needles looked at current events from a pro-union point of view. The show was received so enthusiastically that the cast abandoned their day jobs and expanded production to 8 shows per week. New songs and skits were introduced every few months to keep the show topical and fresh. The production was even performed at the White House for Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. Well-known theater critic Brooks Atkinson noted, Pins and Needles is a gay satirical revue, which is amusing, as Mrs. Roosevelt knows, for she has recently sealed it with the cachet of the White House. According to John Kendrick, a theater and film historian, Pins and Needles is the only hit ever produced by a labor union and the only time when a group of unknown non-professionals brought a successful musical to Broadway. The show ran for a total of 1,108 performances. It brought the union message to audiences in a truly unique way.
They say that we are nights are right on Broadway. They say there's always magic in the air.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
When you're walking down that street.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The final 2 transcripts from the impeachment inquiry depositions were released on Tuesday, bringing a few revelations. Among them, Mark Sandy, a deputy associate director at the White House Office of Management and Budget, said that 2 White House budget officials resigned, expressing concerns about a White House directive to freeze military and security aid to Ukraine. One of those officials, a lawyer, stepped down over concerns that the hold was violating the Impoundment Control Act of 1974, which sharply curbs the executive branch's authority to alter congressionally appropriated funds. Another resigned over, quote, frustrations about not understanding the reason for the hold. But wait, there's more. Sandy also said he was informed the aid freeze came directly from the president. He also said Trump began asking about the assistance package on June 19th after seeing a news media report about it. One question that could and should be asked during the upcoming impeachment hearings is, what did Donald Trump know and when did he know it? A New York Times report Tuesday night suggests Trump was briefed on the existence of the whistleblower in late August, well before September 9th. That's the date when the Intelligence Community's Inspector General informed Congress that there was a whistleblower. It's also the date when Ambassador Bill Taylor raised concerns about the appearance of trading investigations for aid, and the day that John Bolton resigned. CNN is reporting that other documents released Tuesday show that the official order to freeze the aid came on July 25th, the same day as Trump's phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky. The House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday announced it will hold its first public impeachment hearing next week, and they invited the president and his lawyer to participate. Chairman Gerald Nadler said the hearing, which will focus on constitutional grounds for presidential impeachment, will take place on December 4th. Trump is scheduled to be in London for a NATO leaders meeting on that date. A federal judge in Oregon on Tuesday blocked the Trump administration from denying visas to immigrants who can't show proof of health insurance. Trump's policy requires visa applicants to verify they'll have health coverage within 30 days of entry or show they can, quote, pay for reasonably foreseeable medical costs. The judge said the policy was inconsistent with the Immigration and Nationality Act. He had already temporarily prevented the Trump administration from enforcing the policy. His new ruling puts it on hold until a lawsuit challenging the policy as a new form of family separation works its way through the courts. And a crowd of students in Baltimore booed First Lady Melania Trump as she gave a speech on youth opioid abuse. This appearance comes just 4 months after her husband criticized Baltimore as a, quote, disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess where no human being would want to live. The comment was perceived and was a swipe at the late Representative Elijah Cummings, a Maryland Democrat who was a frequent Trump critic. For everyone traveling this holiday, you have my sympathies. More than 1,100 passengers were stranded at Denver's main airport, and about 475 flights there were canceled Tuesday as the airport got dumped with 7 inches of snow. Most of the West Coast, including Oregon, California, Nevada, and Idaho, is bracing Wednesday for what the National Weather Service is calling a historic, unprecedented winter storm. Blizzard and high wind warnings are in effect over much of the region. And watch out, Northeast, you're next. Storms that pummeled the Midwest with snow are now heading eastward, bringing strong winds with them. In Oklahoma, those winds are contributing to a different problem. They're stoking wildfires. About 26 fires are burning in the state, and people in 2 counties were evacuated because of the threat. As for Donald Trump, he and his family are in Palm Beach, Florida, at Mar-a-Lago. On Tuesday night, he held another of his Nuremberg rallies, this one at an arena in Sunrise, Florida, about 10 minutes away from where I'm sitting right now, where he reportedly spent a lot of time attacking the impeachment inquiry, using profanity, and lobbing attacks on Democrats. I try not to include much audio from Donald Trump during these What's News segments, as I prefer not to assault listeners' ears. But as we take a day to celebrate with family and friends and express gratitude for all that's good in our world, we can't ignore the lies that threaten to destroy it all. The man who's trying to upend our republic continues lying just about every time he opens his mouth, sowing discord and politicizing even that which should remain above the fray. Trump claimed at his rally Tuesday night that now we're trying to take away Thanksgiving.
As we gather together for Thanksgiving, you know, some people want to change the name Thanksgiving. They don't want to use the term Thanksgiving. And that was true also with Christmas, but now everybody's using Christmas again. Remember I said that? But now we're going to have to do a little work on Thanksgiving. People have different ideas why it shouldn't be called Thanksgiving, but everybody in this room I know loves the name Thanksgiving, and we're not changing it.
And that's just a bit of What's News for now. I'm Nicole Sandler, wishing you, your family, your friends a very happy, healthy, and filling Thanksgiving. See you Friday.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 35 degrees Fahrenheit, at least here at the mothership. Just across the street, it's freezing and there is snow falling and sticking. And a mere 50 feet to 100 feet above us, it is a lot of snow. So I don't know what's happening with the area that I'm at here at the mothership at positively 3rd and Marie, by the way. So, but we had a bomb cyclone last night. And early this morning, closed down I-5 going into Oregon from Ashland on, and that has still not been opened up. We had winds clocked in this morning in Medford, the highest recorded winds ever in wind recording in Medford, Oregon. So that says something. We're going to have occasional snow showers mixing with rain during the afternoon, a high of around 40, with winds out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Rain later on tonight, and then considerable cloudiness tonight. Lows around 26. Winds will shift out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then Thanksgiving Day and Friday should be fairly nice. Sunny conditions and with partly cloudy skies, and that means some sun, will prevail with winds light and variable for both days. Highs about 42, overnight lows about 25, and then copious amounts of rain coming this weekend and for days and days and days. And it looks like possibly a wintry mix as well. Let's see here. Barometric pressure is, I don't have any data on pollen, air quality index, etc., but I do have barometric pressure. It is falling at 29.33 inches. Visibility is down to 1/2 mile, and relative humidity is at 92%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased, and these people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property. Well, I apologize. It looks like weather around the world will not be available. It looks like I don't have any data for that from the Weather Underground. We do have an airport weather warning here and all up and down the West Coast. So do take care, and I hope your travels on Thanksgiving is safe, sound, and full of thanks and giving. And that is Weather from Around the World, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Orlando Crowcraft of Euronews brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy's Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. A senior minister and the Prime Minister's chief of staff resigned, while another minister suspended himself from duty in Malta amidst a probe into the 2017 murder of journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia. Chief of Staff Keith Schembri and Tourism Minister Conrad Mizzi resigned yesterday, while Economy Minister Chris Cardona suspended himself until the investigation is complete. In a statement, Cardona said he had absolutely no connection with the case, but after being asked for further clarifications from the Maltese police, he was duty-bound to make the decision. Mizzi said that he was resigning in light of the political situation in the country and said that he had no connection and nothing to answer about in relation to the case. Schembri, who is helping police with the investigation into the 2017 murder of Galizia, has not spoken publicly on his decision, but Maltese Prime Minister Joseph Muscat said his chief of staff resigned to ensure that the government continues to function in the best possible manner.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Tariq Panja of the New York Times brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. In the years since a whistleblower implicated Russia in one of the most sophisticated doping schemes in sports history, the country has made repeated efforts to discredit him. Last year, Russia officials took the campaign one step further. They planted fabricated messages that they later claimed were written by the whistleblower in a database that they had agreed to turn over to investigators for the World Anti-Doping Agency. The effort appeared to have several goals, according to a report compiled by the Anti-Doping Agency's Intelligence and Investigations Unit, to frame the whistleblower as the ringleader in a scheme to extort athletes and coaches by threatening to manipulate doping samples, to provide cover for the manipulations of the test results within the data set, and to help Russia avoid serious penalties from global anti-doping regulators. The problem for Russia is that the investigators quickly uncovered the fabrications and the altered test results, and now Russian sports is facing its biggest crisis to date, and it's all of one whole. That brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you know, we are going to broadcast tomorrow on Netroots Radio, and we're going to be here for Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursday's Thanksgiving Day special here. Yes, indeed. We're going to go live. And so do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.